Hello. Today I'm going to go over the cell cycle lecture. So we'll talk about just the basics of what the cell cycle is and why our cells go through it. So in this first picture, what we have is cells that are going through replication. And this is probably in like an onion cell root. That's pretty common, where you can take slides of these and basically freeze them in place and look at what stage the cells are in. According to cell theory, cells are created from previous cells. We know cells go through cell division in which one cell replicates into two cells. And you see that happening here. Like this right here, these two cells are pulling apart to go from one cell to two cells. Okay, now cells go through a process called the cell cycle. The different phases of the cell cycle correspond to different stages of life of a particular cell. So this is the whole process of the cell cycle, but not every part of it does the same thing. In G1, this can be like a rest stage. But then in other phases, you're having things going on like DNA is being replicated. Now, the actual process of dividing into two cells from one cell, that's all mitosis. So these are stages that lead up to mitosis, and then you have the replication actually during mitosis. Mitosis is the part of the cell cycle where the cell replicates and divides. Okay. So we see the cell cycle again here, the different phases. M for mitosis. When cells are not actively replicating, they go into a dormant stage, often referred to as G0, right here. So you see that's part of G1. G1, depending on the cell, a cell can kick out of G1, go dormant into G0 for a long period of time. And then when it needs to replicate again, it will go back into G1 and continue through the cell cycle. But cells have different functions. So they have different needs on how often they replicate. Cells will alter between G0 and G1 depending on the need to replicate. And then these are different types of cells and generally how long they might live. We know that different cell types have different functions. That's what we talked about up here. So your brain cell, the neurons, do different things than your fat cells or your skin cells, right? They have different functions. It is because of those functions that some cells live longer than others. Cells that line the stomach are used up very quickly and have to be replaced often. So stomach cells, the inside lining of your stomach obviously gets churned up. We have digestion acids. So they don't last very long and they have to be replicated all the time. So they go through this cycle really quickly and really often. All right, what we've got here are cells going through replication, but uncontrolled replication. This is cancer. So they don't stop dividing, even when they're supposed to. They're supposed to stop, they didn't. That's cancer. Cells that replicate often have more opportunities for errors to occur. It's the error that occurred during replication or an error that's in the DNA that keeps these cells replicating when they should be stopping. This is why the cells that reproduce more often are also our most common cancer cells. Makes sense, right? The more often the cell reproduces or replicates, the more opportunities there are for cancer cells to show up. And then finally, cell size is a matter of how much space is needed inside of the cell. Cells that are too small would not have enough room for all of the organelles and chemical activity. So if the cell gets down to be too tiny of a size, it's too small, then all the stuff that cell has to do wouldn't be able to take place. The chemical activity, the making genes, proteins, having all the organelles inside of it to do its job properly. That's if it's too small. Cells that are too large will not have enough surface area to transport chemicals. So if it's a really big cell, the chemicals that are made inside of the cell may not be able to even be transported across the cell. So at that point, a cell is not viable. It's too big. It won't be able to do its function. All right, hope this helps. Thank you very much.